Hey guys, welcome back to another video where we have Marcin Tybura versus Serghei Spivac 2 Fight Night coming up this weekend. And we've got a smaller predictions video today as there are only 10 fighters in the card because it's been absolutely riddled with late injuries all over the shop. We've got Alan Nascimento falling ill. We got Uros Medic getting a rib injury, which him versus Danny Barlow would have been the best fight on this card without a doubt. And then also Javid Basharat withdrawing from the co-main event against Gutierrez, which really makes this one of the weakest cards of the year. But I will say there are some hidden gems in this card. So let's get into the first matchup of Stephanie Luciano versus Talita Alencar. So this fight is very much one way or the other depending on who actually gets to execute their style more effectively. And we do have a decent amount to go off as their last fight, they both fought each other, which was literally on Dana White's Contender Series not too long ago, which ended in a draw. We had Luciano dominating on the feet, and then we had Alencar dominating on the ground, which she is a very high level BJJ artist, at least outside MMA. She's a 6-time world champion, but I'm going with the striker here. Luciano, she's a Muay Thai specialist that is just way bigger than Alencar. Size difference is just ridiculous. Alencar has, I believe she has the smallest reach in the whole entire UFC at 58.5. I will say, like, she was getting taken down in the first half of the fight, Luciano was, but then the sprawls were just kicking in towards the later half of that fight, and she just looked way more comfortable on the ground than Alencar did on the feet. So if they do fight in each other's realm, I'm much more confident that Luciano is just going to be more confident. It's going to be able to hold off those submission attempts. And in their last fight, if their fight was going to go any longer, Luciano would have knocked her out. Would have knocked Alencar straight out, well, without a doubt, if there was a fourth round in there. Alencar was hope shooting for her life, but she couldn't get it done. But she, honestly, it was pretty clear that it was a draw. 10-9, 10-9 for Alencar in the first 2 rounds, and then Luciano getting that 10-8 without a doubt in that last round. Luciano, honestly, I think she just needed to use her head kicks a lot more, which would have definitely got the fight done. I mean, DC and Laura Sanko were continuously stating that when they were on the commentary team, obviously previewing that fight, and I see her making that exact change in this fight, and I honestly think that she is going to get that head kick to a ground and pound TKO finish in this fight. She just looks very crisp on the feet, especially in comparison to Alencar. And obviously MMA fights, they always start on the feet, and she just did a very good job defensively on the ground compared to Alencar being defensive on the feet. And her striking and her cardio are just so much better, especially that cardio. That's the really big key factor here. Her cardio is a lot better than Alencar's, and I'm very confident that she's going to be able to stuff Alencar's shots pretty much most of the fight. Maybe in the first round she might be in trouble. The first round is Alencar's best and honestly I think her only realistic chance of getting this one done, because she was just hope shooting for her absolute life in that last fight. So yeah, I'm definitely confident going with the favorite in this one, and I think Luciano is going to get her out of there. Moving up, Youssef Zalal versus Jarno Errens. So when I said before that this card does have some hidden gems in it, this is definitely one of them, because both of these guys are going to come in with something to prove. Because you got Errens, who's had a pretty shaky start in the UFC so far. I believe he's 1-2. And then Zalal got cut, and now he's back in the UFC, and he's on about a 4-5 fight win streak, I believe. That being said, I'm honestly, I am keen for Zalal's return, to be honest. I think that he is looking so much better than he was when he got cut originally. He's really made those changes, and I think he is going to get a decision win here pretty decisively, because I don't think there's a finish, to be honest. Both of these guys are very durable. As you can see on the screen, between the two of them, there's only been one finish loss, and that's Errens back in 2019 on the regional scene by a submission. So yeah, they're both very durable, and Zalal's very good defensively. Errens is fast, but I'm not a huge fan of his strike defense going the other way, especially when he pressures forward and when Zalal is on the back foot, that's probably when he's actually at his best. He's a kickboxer, and he has fantastic movement on the back foot, and he manages his distance very well and is pretty decent with his counter striking, especially with the hooks on the back foot. And he has a strike absorption rate of less than 2 strikes per minute, so that just really is a tell over his MMA career. Less than 2 strikes a minute, he's pretty hard to hit overall, and he's got the ground game there as well to mix it up, especially with the slick trips. He did a very good job against Billy Q in terms of mixing up his overall game and obviously getting that submission win against him. But with Errens being durable, I just don't see Zalal getting the finish there either way, even by submission. If it was one of the two, I'd definitely say by submission, but I am more so confident when it comes to both their durability. And Errens isn't too bad on the ground now. I mean, he's 5-1, so he's made a lot of improvements throughout the regional scene going into the UFC. So yeah, I'm very confident that this is going to end in a decision win for Zalal, and especially with the advantage on the feet when it comes to his strike accuracy and mixing in those trips to keep Errens guessing. I think it's got decision written all over it for him. Moving up, Karl Williams versus Jhonata Diniz. So following on from the last fight that we predicted, this is another hidden gem for sure, because this could definitely have implications at the lower rankings of that heavyweight division. And as skilled as Jhonata Diniz is on the feet, he's got very high level kickboxing, Karl Williams, he's got the fight IQ there. He is going to waste absolutely no time in getting this fight to the ground, and he's going to get that submission finish in this fight. He's never won by submission, but this, without a doubt, stylistically, is the time to do it. I mean, I'll be very surprised if William even exchanges on the feet for more than a minute, because he's good on the feet, but Jhonata has so much more experience outside the cage. He's 1-0 in the UFC at the moment, and that is without a doubt his best chance of getting Karl Williams out of there by KOing him. So Karl Williams being so close to the heavyweight rankings, he's got good momentum, and seeing what he just did to Justin Tafa, taking him down, making him look like a fish out of water, I don't see why in hell Karl Williams wouldn't make this the same kind of fight. And Jhonata Diniz is a lot worse than Justin Tafa in terms of his get-ups. Diniz has no ground game whatsoever, extremely one-dimensional. So Karl Williams, I think this is just a golden opportunity for him to really get this fight done. I mean, he's athletic, he mixes up his game very well, especially with that wrestling, and yeah, by doing that to Tafa, he's easily going to be able to do that to Diniz. And I see Williams honestly shooting and securing a takedown pretty much straight off the bat, and then just circling around, finding that rear naked choke win, and while they're still dry as well. So right in that first round, while they're dry, Karl Williams has got that weight. I don't see Diniz being able to get out of that first round, to be honest, and that will launch Karl Williams into top 15 contention. And moving on, Karol Rosa versus Pannie Kianzad. Now this is where the fight card just definitely re-deflates. I'm gonna take Karol Rosa by a decision win in this fight. Both of these guys don't really have much offensive finishing threat per se, but Rosa statistically just beats Kianzad everywhere. She has a higher output and lands at the better clip, and successfully lands her takedowns at a higher rate as well, which is going to be the key in this fight. Kianzad just doesn't really look great on the ground especially, and her submission defense is pretty poor. I mean, she's 0-3 when it comes to that ground game, and honestly, I just see this being a pretty lackluster 15-minute top control, just dominating fight from Karol Rosa, just when it comes to the takedown entries and that overall control time. Moving on, Charalampos Grigoriou versus Toshiomi Kazama. God, what a mouthful. But even though Toshiomi has had very rough matchups in, he's had fought Rinya Nakamura and Garrett Armfield, who are both looking very good at the moment in their respective divisions, this is make or break for him. So it's really make or break to see even if he can stay in the UFC or just hang with that top competition anyway. So he really needs to make a statement in this fight. And I will say that Charalampos hasn't faced the same competition there, so it could give Kazama that chance, but I'm very confident that the KO TKO finish is going to be for Grigoriou here, honestly. He lost to Angeliga, who is a very composed veteran, so it's good that he actually got to fight someone with a, you know, a bit of depth in the UFC, and he's very defensively sound as well. But I just don't see Kazama having that same kind of striking defense and his ability to keep himself safe nowhere near the same way that Angeliga did. And Charalampos, with that power and his pace, especially through the early fight, I see him just cleaning Kazama up with a 1-2 straight down the pipe and then ground and pound and just splitting him from consciousness. Yeah, Kazama just doesn't have that strike defense to deal with the power of Grigoriou in this fight. On the flip side, if it does go to the ground somehow, then Kazama does have the advantage there. But even in the Angeliga fight, Grigoriou has showed consistent defensive grappling game improvements through from the regional scene up until that fight in his first fight in the UFC. So I'm more confident that Grigoriou is going to be a guy that's going to be able to maintain his submission defense and keep himself out of those dangerous positions. The moment that it's really on the feet, I do see Grigoriou just taking a very nice KO TKO finish for his first win in the UFC. Moving on, Yana Santos versus Chelsea Chandler. Look, I don't really have that much faith in Chelsea Chandler since she literally tried to run out of the cage against Norma Dumont in that last fight. And she's missed weight as well. She looked like absolute dog shit in the weigh-ins. And unless she can get Yana to the ground, I don't see her running away with a win here in any realm, to be honest. And even though Yana, she's on a 3-fight loss streak at the moment, she's fought pretty decent opposition, at least, you know, for the bantamweight pedigree. I just see her taking the win here, to be honest. And I think that she is just going to make it a complete clinch fest. And realistically, there's barely any real technical capability coming out of this fight, but I just prefer Santos' striking game overall. And I don't see her getting the KO TKO finish because Chandler will probably just start hope shooting on her as soon as she starts getting the combinations together and just make it a very ugly fight. So I'm going to take Yana Santos by a unanimous decision win in this one. Moving on, Chris Gutierrez versus Quang Lee. So Quang Lee is coming in pretty hot into this fight. I mean, he's undefeated, he's very fast, he's well-rounded, he's got the explosive side as well, decent striking, decent ground game, but Chris Gutierrez is just too tough a matchup for him, honestly. For a UFC debut, especially fighting the 17th ranked guy, a guy that was a top 15 fighter at one point in that stacked bantamweight division, just coming off a fight against Song Yadong, who is a solidified, you know, definitely solidified top 10 fighter, up there to a top 5 fighter as well. And Quang, it's just the experience. You know, he's definitely just never fought a fighter anywhere near stylistically like Chris Gutierrez, whereas Gutierrez has fought fighters just like Quang with that explosive, well-rounded game, literally just like Song Yadong in his last fight. And honestly, I just strongly believe that Gutierrez is going to run away with this fight. I mean, hence the odds. You know, it's pretty simple here. I'm probably the safest bet of the card. He's just got the tools to maintain a safe distance where Quang probably won't be able to get in range and have that experience to really get into the range and find those shots to lay Gutierrez out. He's just too good with his distance management, and he will break Quang down with that kickboxing style, just chop down his legs. I can see that happening straight up the first round. Chop down those legs and pull out a very clear unanimous decision 30-27 win in this fight. He's got a very awkward style to deal with. I mean, the leg, he uses his legs as jabs and he just cuts people down with the leg kicks, and he counters very effectively when they are coming forward. Chris Gutierrez is fantastic on the back foot, and Quang Lee is a forward pressure fighter. So I think this is just teed up perfectly for Gutierrez to really get back into the groove of things. I do think Quang does have the potential, but this is just the wrong fighter to go against kicking off his debut. Moving up, Barlow versus Nikolay Veretennikov. I really hope that's how you say his last name. I mean, Kazakhstanis. Look, I will say, I think it's good that they've obviously found a replacement for Danny Barlow. I mean, I really want to see him fight. But I'm definitely bummed that we didn't get to see Barlow versus Uros Medic. Uros Medic is, he's pretty settled into that welterweight division. I mean, he fought like Miktabek Oralby. He's had a very fantastic fight against Tim Means in his last fight, just chinning him with that uppercut. And I feel like this had a lot of underrated hype around it. But Nikolay Veretennikov, I mean, he has got KO power there. He's 9-1 with the KOs, and we never know what the hell these Kazakhstani fighters are going to bring. I mean, we've got Asu Almabayev in flyweight. We've got, obviously, Shavkat Rakhmonov in welterweight, who is just a killing machine. And Nikolay took Michael Morales to a, fairly competitive decision. I mean, at least he got him to a decision, because Michael Morales is looking like one of the most dangerous fighters just creeping outside the welterweight rankings. So, and he's going to get there without a doubt. And ultimately, if Nikolay is able to land a clean shot, it could be lights out 100%. But Danny Barlow, this guy is without a doubt, he's going places. He has got a delete button of a left hand and has a 5-inch reach advantage, just like Morales did, which Nikolay struggled with, especially with the strikes down the pipe. But most of all, Barlow has got the speed advantage here without a doubt, and that's the killer. And honestly, on the feet, I'm going to be taking Barlow all day. I've got a lot of confidence in him moving through the division. I think he's going to be ranked at some point without a doubt. And even though Nikolay has got, he's got a combat sambo background with the takedowns, Barlow has very good takedown defense to combat that. And even though Nikolay is 9-1 with the KOs, I have Barlow getting that signature left hand straight down the pipe, sitting Nikolay on his ass and finding that TKO finish in the second round after combating the clinch game and takedown attempts in the first round. Moving up to the co-main event, Damon Jackson versus Chepe Mariscal. So I do see this being a very competitive fight, and it's pretty hard not to, even though Damon Jackson, he's out of his prime, he's 36 years old, but he is a gamer. He's still in there. He's got a reach advantage as well, and he's just a very crafty veteran, mixing up the striking to engage his wrestling and then hunt for the submissions. I mean, he's fantastic with his submission game, 15-1. But going against a guy like Chepe Mariscal, who has amazing momentum, the speed difference as well, and the pressure to really make the fight ugly, I'm going to be taking Chepe Mariscal by a 29-28 decision win here, because Chepe has had a great run through the UFC so far, even though I think in his last fight, I do think he did lose to Morgan Charrier. Aside from that, he's just had amazing form since taking the 2 years off after his 2020 loss in Cage Fury, got on the regional scene. He's gone 6-0, and he's undefeated in the UFC at 3-0 now. And with that strike speed and pressure on the feet, I just don't see Jackson having like a whole lot of answers for him. And even though, Jackson is very dangerous on the ground, being 15-1 with the submissions, Chepe has a very good scrambling game to maintain safe positions, which is, the tell as to why he's never been finished on the ground. So ultimately, Chepe just has the right tools to edge out Jackson on the feet and then keep himself safe on the ground if it gets there, to take the decision win, mainly off the volume and getting the damage in there later through the fight. And moving on to the main event, Marcin Tybura versus Serghei Spivac, number 2. So obviously, these guys have fought beforehand in 2020, where Tybura took the decision win. But I will say Spivac, he's clearly improved since the last fight. He's gone 6-2, and he's only lost to Tom Aspinall and Cyril Gane. And in their first fight between each other, Tybura was 30 pounds heavier than Serghei Spivac in that fight, and they didn't even look like they were supposed to be in the same weight class. Spivac looked a lot skinnier than he does now, and even though Tybura is older now and not necessarily in his prime, honestly, I just see him getting it done again, to be honest. And that's just down to the stylistic differences between both of these guys. Like, Spivac's closed the gap in terms of the weight by, 10, 15 pounds, which is better for him in a sense. But just Tybura stylistically to Spivac, he's just the better fighter, and he's just a bit of a nightmare matchup for Spivac, I really do believe. And, you know, Spivac has that very heavy wrestling submission, suffocating kind of style, but Tybura is extremely defensively sound on the ground, never been finished by submission, and he's got pretty decent takedown defense there as well, which in their first fight, he took Spivac down. Spivac could not get Tybura down, and that's Spivac's whole game. With Spivac not being able to get success against Tybura on the ground, I'm even more confident he's not going to get the advantage on the feet. I mean, he's decent with like basic striking, you know, decent like straight strike boxing, you know, his ones, his twos, but Tybura mixes up his kickboxing very well. I mean, he usually lands like 3 strike combinations, similar to like Robert Whittaker, obviously not as flexible, but he does like a good 1-2 high kick. You know, he always lands pretty decent 3 strike combinations. And more to the point of not finding success on the ground, Spivac is, you know, he's a bit heavier now, and his stamina is just going to be even more of a detriment to him. And that's the issue. If he can't get Tybura down, he's wasting a lot of energy in the grappling, and he can't succeed with it. I think Tybura is going to run away with it, and I see Tybura getting the round 3 or round 4 KO TKO finish here, you know, nullifying the grappling offense to tire Spivac out, and then piece him up with the combinations on the feet to then get the level change, then take Spivac down, and then finish Spivac with the ground and pound to end off the fight night. Moving on to the fight card award predictions, kicking it off with fight of the night. I'm going to give it to Damon Jackson versus Chepe Mariscal. So, I mean, stylistically, fast-paced fight on the feet, along with the consistent scrambles on the ground to see, like, these guys obviously have that chess match to see who can advance their positions. I think that it will just make a very entertaining whole round MMA based fight, and as I said, Chepe is going to win, and it will allow him to move one step closer to those rankings. And moving on to performance of the night, I'm giving it to Chris Gutierrez. I mean, as I said in the fight analysis, stylistically, Gutierrez is not the matchup that Quang wants for his first UFC fight. I mean, Gutierrez, he's got a very high level ability in comparison, and especially the style that he has. He will be able to shut down Quang's fast pace, the explosiveness, and pick him apart through the 15 minutes. And that's just him showing that there are levels to the game. And honestly, there is a possibility he could honestly KO him. I wouldn't be surprised when we know he's explosive. We saw what he did to Frankie Edgar. He definitely has that in his arsenal, but I think with the power of Quang, I think that Chris Gutierrez will just show out and absolutely dominate for 15 minutes and hopefully get very close to getting that ranked fight back at 135 pounds. Now moving on to the fighter to watch and the finish of the night, as you can see on the screen, Danny Barlow. I mean, he is one of the hottest prospects moving through the welterweight division right now, without a doubt. I mean, he is very good, and I'm not saying that he's ranking ready now. I think he definitely will be soon, and this is a performance that he'll be able to, I think he'll be able to run through, and he will be very close, especially with how entertaining he is with his finishes. He will be able to get a ranking fight pretty soon. I mean, he's very long. He's got the ridiculous power in that signature left hand where he just deletes people, and yeah, I feel like he's just going to be a problem for pretty much anyone that he fights is going to stand with him. And Nikolay is unfortunately absolutely no different in this case. And that's why I ultimately see Barlow running away with the finish of the night on this card. And he is the fighter, trust me, that you need to watch out for. If you've enjoyed this video, definitely check out my Mythical Matchups video on Tony Ferguson versus Paul Felder and who would have won between them in 2018, with Paul Felder being on a 3-fight finish streak and Tony Ferguson being one of the best in the world at that point, ranked at number 2 in that lightweight division. And please like, comment, subscribe. It really goes a long way for the channel, and I will catch you in the next one.